Welcome, Model FA's David DeCelle here, CEO of Model FA and your host of the Model FA podcast. And we are joined here today by Joanne Bradford, who is the Chief Money Officer over at Domain Money. And I couldn't be more excited to have Joanne on. She not only is doing amazing things over at Domain Money, but also she has a really cool and impressive and successful background in which we're going to unpack today. And before we officially dive in, big thank you to Tommy and the folks over at Street Cred. We wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that introduction. So appreciate you guys for that. But Joanne, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thrilled to be here.
Well, let's rock. I know I was very impressed when we first got together and had our initial conversation in your background. And I remember I want to try not to make your head too big with this comment, but I remember we got off the Zoom call and I walked out and told my wife, I was like, let me tell you about this woman that I just, spoke to and all the things that she's accomplished and the companies that she's been a part of. So I have a lot of calls during the day, and I don't tell my wife everything, but I told her that one. So just a quick little compliment to you. But walk us through, Joanne, a little bit about your background.
Yeah, I started off selling ads in college at my college newspaper, was a journalism major. I ended up doing that for Business Week for almost 12 years. And then I went to Microsoft in 2001, something called the Internet, and started selling ads there. Ended up selling $2.5 billion worth of ads for Microsoft and helping them make the investment into Facebook. In my second year there, I won the Bill Gates Chairman Award, and he gave me a Rolex, which I still have, which is super
That's
exciting.
sick.
Right. And a Cartier pen. Right. And then I went to a little startup because I was like, hey, I need to work at a tech startup, which was terrible. And then I went to Yahoo at 2008, which was tough. And I did a lot of, cutting of resources, sort of like what's happening today in the world. And then in 2010, I went to a company called Demand Media. We built things like eHow and Livestrong, and we're sort of the first machine learning AI. How do you make content to, reverse engineer the algorithm? And I took that company public. I was the chief revenue officer and chief marketing officer. And then I did a short stint as the president of the San Francisco Chronicle, and then worked at Pinterest, where I built the monetization strategy. And at Pinterest, while I was there, we went from 1 billion of valuation to $13 billion of valuation. I hired 125 salespeople to go out and sell pins. My first hire there is now still 10 years later, the chief revenue officer. And at that moment in time, I said, oh my God, I need to not sell ads ever again. I'd sold every kind of ad. I said, I need to go into a new industry and learn something new with new people. And I ended up going to work at a little tiny company with 70 employees in San Francisco called SoFi. And I was the COO, Chief Operating Officer, and Chief Marketing Officer. And the challenge was build a brand for millennials that is the modern finance brand. And we started off with student loan refinancing. And I worked there for 4 years, grew the valuation from 500 million to 4.5 billion. And we built all sorts of different products, from financial planning products to investment products, personal loans, student loans, mortgage products, and really became sort of a self-actualized financial expert. And then my personal story at that point in time is that I was a Morgan Stanley client, and I was going through several exits. Pinterest was going public. I was selling SoFi stock on the secondary. And I had joined a company after I left SoFi called Honey, which was coupon codes. And we sold that after 6 months of me being there for $4 billion in cash to PayPal. And I was highly dissatisfied with the response of my private wealth manager because I said, wow, I'm going through the biggest life change that you can, and I need help in financial planning. And so I turned back to a woman that I had met at SoFi that did financial planning around what you really wanted in life, your personal goals, your standards. And I had always told her, like, hey, I would like to spend more time in nature. I would like to make sure my kids can do what they want. I would like to be able to build a house. And I said, yes, I want my returns to beat the market and I want my taxes to be efficient, but I would really like my personal value questions answered as part of my financial plan. And she did an unbelievable job and sort of beat out Morgan Stanley in making me feel heard, seen, good, and in control of my money. So I kept in touch with her for years. Fast forward to today, we now work together at Domain. She is the chief financial planning officer at Domain and writes financial plans for people at a flat fee rate, whether you have $200,000 or $20 million. She will make you feel seen and heard and give you a very specific action plan and not be conflicted. We have a group of financial planners that do that. And I love that work. It's very personal for me in that it's very difficult to get a good financial plan that analyzes your spending, your saving, what you need to do, and give you an investment strategy. You can get an investment strategy from anybody, but like getting the combination of those things is what makes people feel empowered. So that was sort of in a nutshell my journey. Lots of crazy stories along the way, a couple of failures, but my story is really one of, you just keep trying and it's okay to go learn something new. All industries are not that different. You're trying to satisfy a customer, get them through the journey so they understand it, that they feel good about it when they come out the other end of it, and they feel confident. And so that's what I apply to everything I do. I'll work forever because I like it. I want to be a productive member of society. And I work on problems that I want to work on.
So I have a number of follow-up
Yep.
questions in no particular order. So going back to the person from Morgan Stanley that you had worked with, I guess my first question is number one, what was the allure that brought you to Morgan Stanley in the first place? Because I have a theory about that. And then the second question is, was this person that was working with you like just not in the loop and didn't care to know about the exits that you were having, or were they just mainly focused on the investment management and not the planning aspect? I guess what was the disconnect there? So first, what was the allure, and then ultimately, what was the disconnect?
Yeah, and I have a pretty common journey. So, when my husband and I were doing our financial planning, I was specifically looking for a female financial advisor, and I found a really great one at Morgan Stanley. Her name was Holly Ruxin. She was great. And she decided to leave her firm, leave Morgan Stanley, and go out on her own. And I was not willing to take the risk to go with an individual person. And so at that point in time, I asked the head of the wealth team at Morgan Stanley to find me the best practice I could. I ended up with a local team, and there were very specific things. We sat down, we briefed them on our entire portfolio, our risk and holdings in tech stocks. This is where I live. It's very common for people to have outweighted percentages of their net worth tied up in RSUs and in stock. And liquidity on those events is super important. Many people miss it. Um, and so, we sat down many times to meet. Several times he got my name wrong when we went to a meeting. He was specifically, sent all of the correspondence to my husband, didn't copy me on it. Just to be clear, my husband was retired at that point in time, and I, was the clear breadwinner. And so, that was a little bit annoying. I didn't really have time for it. But, so what I ended up doing in the process, because people don't know how to break up with their advisors. They think it's a very tough thing to do. So what I did was I took my, portfolio, and I went and talked to three separate advisors that met my criteria. And I asked them all to analyze my portfolio, what they would change, what they'd do, what the costs would be, and ultimately chose a firm called Baker Street in San Francisco, that I have a team of people on that help me. And there were the two other contenders were awesome and amazing. But it was just a very good exercise. And you always have a right to put your money wherever you want, move your money wherever you want. And then from a domain perspective, like we actually sometimes run a flat fee plan against a AUM firm. We have one client who has $20 million who's like every other year, he's like, can you just, check where I'm at and make sure that it's all good. And so, that's sort of the goal. I think everybody has to, you know, be okay with it and be able to take control and agency of your money. I mean, when you deposit your money with a financial advisor, I think sometimes people feel like they can never get it, that it's never theirs to change, to do, that they have to ask permission for control over it. And that's not the case. And it's a very big issue for people is like, how do they break up with their financial advisor? I just made my husband call the guy and just say, hey, we're out. And he was shocked and surprised. And I'm sure I was probably one of his bigger clients. And I didn't mind it being that way, right? So on with the show. But my money and the agency over my money is really important to my family. I'm trying to teach my kids how to think about it, how to run their financial futures, everything from 401k early to investing in a basic index fund. I like a little bit of crypto. I have a friend of mine who tried to talk me into putting $150,000 into crypto 13 years ago. I did the calculation. If I did it 13 years ago and held on to it, it would be worth $118 million today. And I probably would not have missed that money. Uh, she is at a spa today. She literally called me. She's like, I'm like, what are you doing today? She's like, oh, I'm at the spa. We're supposed to come with me. I'm like, my crypto is not still, I mean, I still have some, but it's just like she literally gave us this giant lecture and was like, just take, $50,000 and put it in there and just let it ride forever. And we were like, what are you talking about? And here you are, I would not have $50,000 would have gotten me, $40 million, right?
Mhm.
So it's kind of crazy. So it's a twisting story.
Well, I'm smirking, not at the crypto portion, but with the Morgan Stanley advisor, there's two things that are baffling to me. One is how low the bar is to retain clients. It's give a you know what and make sure you're corresponding with both spouses. Number two, it's something like when I'm working with advisors that I still feel the need to share with them of like, hey, when you're meeting with a married couple, like make sure you're focusing on both of them and not just one of them. Like in a similar vein, but slightly different, we're in the midst of doing a remodel project in our house. I know nothing about construction. My wife used to renovate hotels and have a team that would renovate the Four Seasons and whatnot, right? She knows way more about this stuff than I do, but who do you think the contractors direct their conversations to?
Of
The
course.
guy who has no idea what the frick he's talking about.
Yeah.
And then I'll pass it over to my wife, and they're like, "Oh, whoa, she knows this stuff." So it's just interesting how low the bar is to be a good human and retain a client relationship regardless of the industry. It's just mind-boggling that that's still like a conversation that needs to be trained on.
I
Um,
have a friend of mine who started a prenup company. It's cost-effective prenups online. It's called This First. And one of her big things is that, she tells everybody up front, the company, they communicate with both people through the prenup process because, it was like, if one person drives it, it's actually not a prenup agreement. It's actually just like a one, it's like one person's
a
thing. So it's
prenup
like,
ultimatum.
yeah, so she's like, look, we learned in our early testing that we just have to communicate like to both people all the time, even if one person is like, okay, here you go, because she's like, otherwise we'd get to the end and we'd have to like sort of start over. And she said, look, there were like kind of legal implications and disclosures that they had to work through to get to that. And we find the same thing at Domain Money is like, look, when there's one partner that is, seeking financial advice, it's usually for a reason that they want to resolve some financial issue in their family, either like overspending, not investing, wanting to do something differently, a house, IVF is always a common discussion of significant investment. And so, what we try to do is ask that both parties be on the calls, even especially when we do the readout process. So the process is pretty simple. It's a 20-minute like intro call, then a 30-minute, hey, give us all your records. We, go through the planning process. Then we give you a 90-minute readout of all your action items. Then if you want follow-on help, you can subscribe to that in a lot of different ways or just do it by the hour. And what happens is you give a to-do list and then it's like, okay, who's going to do this? When is it going to be done? But, financial hygiene, for lack of a better word, and having a financial plan when you're in a relationship, I think both people need to be very aligned. It's really a value discussion and it's a shared value discussion. Like you can go do your own physical health. You don't have to tell anybody, right? You can, I know fat, skinny people, right? Like they're like very skinny, but very unhealthy. And it's like, they don't share their physical plans with with their partners. And then I know people that are very, very intertwined in it. But I think it's very important that you share your goals, the actual numbers, and get to that discussion. It's just people either put their head in the sand or they put their head too far into the spreadsheet that they don't have a conversation.
Mhm. Let me try to tee up this question appropriately and help set the stage. So I want you to go into sort of the vision for domain money and what you guys are looking to accomplish, um, while giving context as to because there's a lot of complex things going on behind the scenes that you're creating. You guys, and looking at your website, are not only backed by super legit PE firms, but some very notable individuals as well. So I'd like you to hit on that. But try to do so in a way that comes all the way down to the fact that one of the things that you guys believe in is a simple one-page plan. And I just think it would be interesting to bring us through that journey of like all the complexities that are involved with creating a one-page plan at the end of the day. So if you can bring us through that, that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, let's just start first with the what our customer looks like. Our average customer age is, 38, making, 250, and hasn't really done a financial plan before, has sort of done the basic things like maybe a 401k, has been able to buy a house, but is like, oh, now all of a sudden, like, wait a minute, I actually want to understand my retirement vision, my retirement plan, how I get there. And that is a very underserved market, right? They could have, a couple of $1 million, maybe a house, maybe a second rental property. There could be some money to be inherited, or there could be a lot of pressure on helping support other members of the family. And so they need to go through and really have a holistic view of what they need to do and how they need to either improve their situation, change their situation, or get a better command of their situation. And so, what happens in that process, first of all, is there's not really many places you can go to get this because you're either sort of in the self-serve world where you don't have enough assets and you end up, in an E-Trade account, a Schwab account, you end up with a Fidelity person or like, at First Republic buying the products that they want and have. Or at the other end of it, you end up in, very specific minimums, having minimum assets, and you end up in a very, you know, committed AUM percentage fee structure. So there's this entire middle of the world that doesn't have a product, right? Doesn't have a
Mhm.
service, doesn't have a home. There's a few companies that have gotten into it. It's a very big, big opportunity. And you can't wait until you're 50 to get your plan together. I don't know that you can get it fully together when you're 25, right? So there is sort of this moment. And so the process is pretty straightforward. We sit down, we ask about your life goals, the values that you have, what are you seeking? We have you go through some adjectives that describe what you want, whether it's safety, adventure, like a bunch of different things. So we have a picture of who you want to be in your financial life. Then we actually go through your spending and we look at everything that you are spending on. And let's just say you said travel was important, but all your money was being spent on food delivery, Amazon, and Instagram shopping. We would reflect that back to you and we would say, hey, look, your goals are excessive here. You're spending thousands of dollars a month here. If you could control one of those things, you could actually either pay down this debt, invest this specific money in it, and it would be a game changer for you. If you'd like to buy a house, here, let's figure out how much house you can afford. Um, One of our partnerships is with money influencer Money with Katie. And Money with Katie, there's a segment where Money with Katie was like, do I buy a house or do I continue to rent? And we did the analysis for her of market return versus interest rate versus what she had, and decided that the $300,000 deposit that she would need to put down against interest rate in the market at that moment in time, she's better off leaving it in the market until interest rates change and or housing prices change. So we will do a very specific analysis for you of your situation to say, should you buy this house? Should you sell your RSUs? How should you think about your tax situation? We spend, 10 to 15 hours putting together that plan, analyzing your spending, and then we read it back to you based on your goals. So whatever your top goal was, whether it was change jobs, we have a lot of people that want to change careers. We have a lot of people that want to be able to support their parents, buy a house, get out of a situation, take a year off, do those things. We give you a specific plan to get to it with the steps in it, and then look at your portfolio and make any adjustment that you need to get there. And that's the process of the one-page plan. And the, net promoter score or customer satisfaction score is 10 out of 10 on it. We probably provide too much value for people at this point, but we'd rather over deliver than under deliver. And they feel very good. They feel confident. They feel like they know what's going on. They feel like there's no stupid question, that someone expressed enough interest and took enough time on their own personal thing. And it wasn't some, AI bot looking at your money and doing that. And so there's just a high degree of confidence, which we're very proud of and we love. And so our goal now is to figure out how to scale it. We have plans to take we've productized the process that we have, and with a lot of technology, we're working with a couple of other RA firms to let them use our planning methodology and technology. And then we'll keep, getting customers and growing our capacity. It's a very specific brand and approach. It's right. It's like grocery stores. I don't know if you shop at, Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, Wegmans, or Erewhon, right? But you know what you need, you know what you're willing to pay for it. And so we think about it that way. There's lots of ways you can manage and approach your money. And then just the last point I'll make is that there's this big DIY movement, or going on in financial services. Hey, buy this spreadsheet, do this, work on this. AI can help you. In the end, we've sort of analyzed it in that it probably would take you at least 60 hours to do with us what it would take your time investment of 3 to 5 hours. And, you get a professional product that is actually delivered in a timely manner and gets you on your way. And so we think the value exchange for the money that you pay is well worth it. And just
So
so everybody knows, it's $3,000 for the basic one-page plan, which does what I just described. There's strategic if you have a lot of a lot more complex assets, and then there's comprehensive if you have a very, very complex portfolio with lots of different assets where you need full rebalancing, full redone. And that's really akin to what a Morgan Stanley or anybody else would do. And that's $7,800.
mhm. So with the backing that you have with the investors that have invested in Domain and the private equity firms, it's I guess what I'm looking to understand is the traditional private equity approach to our industry is because of the predictability and or excuse me, with the AUM model. Um, Whereas there's private equity interest in what you guys are doing, which is the flat fee
Yep.
model. So what's the opportunity look like in terms of the marketplace? Like what is drawing private equity into domain money?
Yeah, and let me just talk through a little bit about who's invested in us. So, Adam Dell is the CEO and founder. Michael Dell's brother, who's also a serial entrepreneur, was one of the lead investors in OpenTable, built Clarity Money and sold it to Goldman Sachs. We have investors like Ashton Kutcher, Joe Lonsdale. We have Maveron, who is an investor, and RRE, who's an investor. And their point of view is like, look, this is a giant, giant market, that, we are serving a group of people that have not been served before. The goal is that we do it with very specific methodology that works for 98% of people in the world. Like we had someone come yesterday that was like, "Hey, I'm 60 and I want to like maximize my outflow from my, my 401ks and my Roth IRAs." We were like, "You know what? You need someone that specializes in that. Like you're not our we referred him to he and his wife to someone else. And so we're very clear about our what we're doing and getting to a place where we can repeat and scale that and keep people satisfied with that experience, and that we're building some underlying technology, and that about 25% of people come back in at least once in the following 2 years for like a full refresh because your life changes, right?
Hmm.
Like, a woman the other day is like, "Hey, look, I just changed jobs. I downsized my job a little bit. I have got to support my mother. I really need to understand like what my mom's long-term care looks like and how long I need to work, and go through that exercise, and feels better about it now, right? As people, the job market's very dynamic. People's needs change. And so we get a lot of people that, revisit. So the recurring revenue is super important to us. Um, and then just really, building the underlying technology and process. So I think about it like, you know, I always think like, can you make this into McDonald's, right? Like, is there like a franchise? Is there an
Hmm.
experience where what you go and get is very specific, and it works for a lot of people? At SoFi, like student loans, 90% of people came in with a W-2 and a salary. There was 10% that came in with, side hustle, bonuses, RSUs, all these other things. And eventually we got to the place where we could deal with their complexity. But for the first few years, it was just like, make this amazing for the W-2 salary employee that needed to refi their student loan. And we literally focused so hard on the experience, the technology, running it through. We did the same thing in personal loan. So I have a lot of experience in making a really great customer experience. And a lot of it you'll never see, or feel, or you won't appreciate it. But if it wasn't there, you would be frustrated. So like everything, like our doc upload center, being able to go back and look at your plan, being able to communicate with your RA in text and do those things, and your CFP in text, it matters a lot. And I think like all of that doesn't really exist. People don't want to communicate via email, and they want to know where their documents are. They want what I call the pizza tracker, right? Like where I am in this process. Everything else in your life, it's going to be 3 days till this, it's going to be 10 minutes till this. Like I went on a United flight the other day. Like I was like, I don't want to know this much about my flight, right? Like they're like, okay, the gate is open now,
Hmm.
there's this sharing information, and that's very hard for people, especially in this category, and unless you're building it from the beginning. And that's what we're doing, is really trying to enhance that experience. And you don't really realize any of it's there, but if it wasn't there, now you're going to be irritated. It shouldn't be hard. It shouldn't be like, oh, it's like going to the dentist where you've got to make this painful appointment and sit there and do it. It should just be like, oh, okay, I've got questions.
Well, and it seems like there's the opportunity that you are targeting is the folks who are too small to have an advisor really care about them the way they should be cared about, and a client or prospect thinking that they're not ready for an advisor because they don't yet have the capital, but they have the questions, they have the scenario that they need help being talked through. And if excuse me, if I'm not mistaken, you have one main type of client that you articulated earlier, that 38-year-old avatar, but you really have two types of clients because aren't you guys rolling out soon, or maybe it is rolled out, an offering for advisors who come across clients that are below their proverbial minimum.
Yes.
And so help unpack that a little bit. What's the value prop to the financial planning firms out there? Because one thing that you mentioned in our intro call is that, listen, there's more than enough potential customers for everyone to play nice in the sandbox. So you're not necessarily competing to a degree. Obviously you are, but you're also helping enhance these firms. So how are you doing that?
Yeah, what I just described in that technology is we're going to make that available to RIA firms, right? Because they don't have a really good planning tool that they love. There's a few of them out there, but they're sort of, overly complex and overly engineered to sort of do everything and anything. And it's like, no, and most firms are actually outsourcing a lot of their planning work to other people, right? And it's like, how can you really get to know a client without actually doing that planning work? But it's a heavy lift. And so, we've gotten the process down, to a shorter period of time. We are using some AI, we're using some software and some, workflow to get it to be much better for people. So we don't have to worry about that. And we'll sell that as, a SaaS solution
Mm,
to these firms. We've got a couple of them, doing some early betas with us, and we expect that we'll roll that out more holistically. But there's not a great solution for it, and it's work that financial advisors don't necessarily want to do. They're used to like, hey, here's your portfolio, here's how your portfolio is performing. There's a very specific layer of information that people want that is a little bit more financial planning, spending, tax habits, money habits, that is not a part of it, right? That most, people shy away from. And so this allows you to actually do that work and show it to someone. I mean, you'd just be surprised at how many people their cash flow situation is shitty. Like, they think that they're doing really well and they're actually not. When you sit down and go through it and you're like, wait a minute, what my Amex bill is this much, and you're like, okay, well, you actually can't be spending that much money, and you'd be shocked at how many people have that. The other thing you'd be shocked by, which really blows me away, is how much money people have squirreled away and it's not invested, right?
hmm
Like it's just like, oh, I've got a bunch of cash sitting over here. I got money from a bonus. I sold some stock. My, Aunt Jane gave me X money just sitting there, and they're like, I don't know what to do with it. And I'm like, well, like literally, you know let's have that discussion. I mean, my mother is 87. When my dad died, he had put all their money, and he was an investor, he was a CFO, and he had put all their money into money market. And I was like, Mom, come on, like, so we did a plan for her, and it was like, hey, look, let's, give you a risk weighted portfolio. Her portfolio is up 40% in the last few years. And I'm like, Mom, like, you didn't need to be that conservative on this. And so, I think people always need a refresh and a reframe of their financial situation. It's crazy that they don't do it. Like everything else in your life, you have a reframing of it, whether it's your nutrition, your dating profile, your job, your LinkedIn. But I'm like, oh my gosh, the most important liberating thing in your life is your money, and you don't reframe it ever. So, like, that's really the mission. And I don't really care if people get a financial plan from someone else. I think Domain does an amazing job, and we are, like the word of mouth on it is just growing day by day. And I feel great about it. I just want everybody to have a financial plan. And you'd be shocked at how many people do not have one. Like when you ask people, I was with, I'm on the board of a company. I was with one of the lead executives in the company. And I was like, do you have a financial plan? And he was like, no. He's like, do you think I should have one? I'm like, yes. He has two teenage kids. And he's like, yeah, I just really haven't paid attention to it. I'm like, well, when are you going to pay attention to it? I'm like, there's no reason. He's like, oh, it seems like a lot of work and a pain. He's like, I just, I'm banking on the stock of this company. I've been putting money in my 401k. I save a little, and I'm like, you don't really, you literally have not sat down and like looked at it holistically. He's like, no.
It's a lot of it can be intimidating, or like the idea of, okay, I have $500,000 or $1 million or $20 million, whatever the amount is, it's all someone has. And for them to think about, I now have to entrust this with this guy or gal by moving it over, you're kind of eliminating that worry, since it
Yeah.
is, that flat fee style model.
It's a
One
free nouveau for your money.
Exactly. I'm curious. One of the last questions I have before we wrap up, Joanne, is um, so when you think about like the overall vision that you guys have, okay, and you juxtapose that against the experience that you've had, and you threw out some examples of like worth 500 million, then boom, 4.5 billion, right? Like, I'm curious to know if you notice common themes in your previous experience of like, okay, we made this click and then we went to the moon. Is there something like, are there common themes with what that thing is that needs to click to really drive up the value? And do you anticipate something similar to that with domain money?
Yeah, look, I learned early on, um, I love the scale of technology and that you have written some software and it is able to, scale and serve and make money. And so, the majority of my value creation, whether it was Pinterest, Honey, SoFi, Microsoft, was all around, hey, how can technology do these things? And I'm very excited about what AI can do and can change and how it's sort of giving access to technology to everybody. I use it every day. I play with it every day. And so I think that unlock to figuring out like, okay, how can I do things faster, better, and make things less like, hey, how do you repeat this 100 times? So, like when I was at SoFi, one of the things that we did was every week we would do a total tear down of the process because our top of funnel, which meant how many people were coming in and applying, was great, but our conversion wasn't that great. So I was like, let's go through and figure out how to get our conversion to improve. And so it was everything from ID upload, scanning in your ID. You used to have to like take a picture of it and send it. Now it's like just take the picture, scan it in. Could you scan in documents? Could you drop a document in? Like all those things. So we were like, let's just take the friction out of this. And I think sort of the financial services and, wealth management industry has some of the most friction I've ever seen. And some of it is self-inflicted, some of it they want to keep in place. And so like that is going to change the entire industry, right? Like at SoFi, you could get an account before you used to have to go to the First Republic and get an umbrella and a chocolate chip cookie. I didn't want to
I
go there. I
still I
wanted,
still have my First Republic umbrella, even though I'm with Chase now.
of course you do, right? And you're like,
That's
and
funny.
you're right, and you went in there, but now you don't have to. And you're like, if someone told you, okay, you're going to choose Chase or you're going to choose First Republic, but First Republic, you have to go park, drive in, and go to the bank in the hours that it's open. Or Chase, you can do it whenever you want, however you want, and their technology will work better. You are going to choose Chase, right? I don't care. The generational shift has happened. The next generation does not want to go to a bank. They do not want to meet with an individual in an office park to go through their financial plan. And so the digitization and the usefulness of this hopefully will get to the point that it feels as easy as Uber or DoorDash or those other things, and you feel as in control as you do other things. And so, I just think that the service part of this industry is pushing back on it and holding out, saying the human is still important. And it's like, yes, they are, but it's the human enabled by technology that will win this out all day. And the large institutions know it and they're rushing to invest money in it. I'm an advisor to wealth.com who does trust and estate for financial advisors, and they make it super easy to manage your legal documents. And they're seeing great adoption. They just received $30 million of funding from Google Ventures. Everybody knows that this space is exploding, right? Like it's like healthcare. You've got to get it to be a better experience for the consumer. There will still be room for professionals. There will be room for relationships and advice. And that is at the core of the domain promise, is that you will always talk to a person that has looked at and reviewed it and will, look you in the eye and say, you're doing the right thing. And here's what you should watch out for versus you having to self-monitor it.
Well, it's interesting, and for those of you just listening to the audio, I'm smiling on my end because with the onboarding process, that tends to be the filled with the most friction. And you lose so much momentum. And advisors, when I chat with them about that, or maybe they get feedback from their client being like, "Hey, this is a lot." They kind of say, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But folks like you who weren't born in our industry show up and it's like it ain't what it ain't. You don't have to do it that way. So I always like when people with uh, a lot of experience and big hearts from different industries come into this industry because it's a fresh set of eyes that is like, I don't know about you, but if I walk into a business or a restaurant, I'm like, well, why wouldn't you do it like this? It seems so obvious, but when you're in the thick of it day in and day out, it's tough to see the forest through the trees, so to speak. So I'm
Yeah.
glad that you're here and welcome to our dinosaur industry.
The last thing that I'll tell you is that Pinterest was really a replication of the catalog, right? Like, here's all the things and like what you want to save and do. And, one of the ways that I was able to really successfully sell Pinterest was I made a trip to Walmart and I walked through the store and I asked everybody, I said, can you show me your Pinterest boards? And I went the next day and showed their Pinterest boards to the executives at Walmart. And we could tell from them, Pinterest was about your future intent, right? Like the house they were building, the baby they were having, the wedding they were planning, the remodel that they were doing, the recipes that they were making. And I said, there's no other platform in the world that can give you future looking intent into what people are going to buy, do, where they're going to go. And, I think I would like to make, like dealing with your money as easy as using Pinterest, that you're like, okay, here it is. Here's how I want to sort it out. I want to do this. I want to go here. Here's what I need to do it. And it's at the beginning stages. And, when I was at SoFi, we made so much progress on it. Honey, we made so much progress on it, right? Like the pain point was getting a coupon code, but then we really turned it into like, hey, can you get a loan? Can you buy this product? What are you going to do? Can we give you a better offer? And that's why PayPal bought it for that much money. But, there's huge, huge, huge opportunity, right? Like in San Francisco, you get in a Waymo and a driverless car. People love it now. Everybody thought that wouldn't be possible. So like our imaginations aren't even fully unlocked at what is possible for, financial planning and advice. And so I'm excited to be at the beginning stage of it.
Love it. Well, before we wrap up, one of the final questions I have, and I asked all of my guests this, to essentially distill a reading list for the folks who listen to the show, is a book that's had an impact on you. And the one that you had chose that I'll tee up for you is called Financially Fearless by Katie Song. Last minute or two that we have here, why'd you pick that book and what's the impact that it had?
Yeah, the book is called Financially Fearless Tech Mom's Guide to Money because Katie Song, who works with us, she has a couple of clients that are in a Facebook group called Moms in Technology. And Moms in Technology always, it's 20,000 tech moms that ask each other for advice. One of the number one things they asked for was financial advice, and she would get literally a dozen referrals a week from there from people that wanted her service. And she was like, I finally just want to write a book for them because they keep asking me the same questions over and over. So Katie sat down and wrote the book. I helped her edit it. We self-published it. And it sort of serves that particular segment. And what it really shows you is like, hey, there are people asking for financial advice everywhere. This group is super powerful. Their average income is 250. Their average RSUs are in the three to $400,000 range. They are, have a lot to balance, and nobody has served them. Nobody has written a book for them. Nobody has come to talk to them. And I'm like, how is this so obvious and right here? It was kind of a beautiful thing to write this and serve the community. It wasn't expensive. The book's in Amazon. She sells it and it serves that group. And I wish that every financial advisor out there would write and publish the book for the niche of people that they're serving, because it makes them feel heard, seen, and like that there's someone that wants to serve them besides a large financial institution.
Love it. Well, if I'm listening to this and you've piqued my curiosity, particularly with what's coming down the pipeline beyond the beta testing and how I, as an advisor, could partner up with Domain Money, where is the best place for me to go, and how can I follow along with your team's journey?
Yeah, I mean, you can, always follow our Instagram, but Adam Dell is running the effort to develop the software solution, and so you can ping him, Adam at Domain Money, or find him on LinkedIn. He loves LinkedIn. We love LinkedIn. It's really great. And you can always ping me too. It's Joanne, Joanne at Domain Money, and we will get you all set and sorted out. We love to talk to the community. We're at all of the trade shows, at all the industry events, and really just trying to have a good time with this.
Awesome. Well, Joanne, this is probably our, at this point, third or fourth conversation, and I always learn something new. And I appreciate your time. And for everyone tuning in today, appreciate your time and attention. And again, thank you to Tommy and the folks over at StreetKit for bringing us together.
Really, really appreciate what you're doing. I think it's awesome and important, right? Like covering all the topics for this group of amazing professionals that want the best things for their clients. So have a great day and have a great holiday season.
Yes, you as well. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.